Hello and welcome back to Operators Association Podcast. I am Cody Alford. Man, I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode. This episode, we're going to cover a little bit more like forward progression, right? But first, I want to kind of cover dude. So as you heard the last episode, right? All that stuff from going from high school to boot camp, and now I went on leave. So I grew up in Texas, so I went back to Texas on leave, and man, let me just tell you. I was a walking giant. You heard me, a giant. Man, I was untouchable. My middle name, actually, I changed it to Ego legally because I was just full of air lats. I was indestructible. I was like the Terminator. And I got my very first tattoo, and you guessed it, it says USMC, right? And man, I was so happy. I was like so prideful and just proud to be a United States Marine. Like it's like holy shit, you talk about this stuff and then, you know, I came back from on leave, on boot leave they call it, the 10 days of leave, and I was like fuck man. Dude, I am like the titan of titans, right? Cuz a lot of people talked about doing stuff but like a lot of people didn't do anything and you're only gone for a few months for boot camp, so by that time people were still living their like summer vacation, weren't really in college or doing anything like that, so it was kind of a cool feeling, but at the same time I came back and it was just there was no place for me there. I graduated, literally I graduated not only just high school, not only boot camp, but I graduated from that environment, right? I graduated from that scene that I was doing the same shit, that didn't serve me anymore. And at the time, I was still doing a bunch of dumb things in life, but I was really excited to get this like career going because I mean, unlike most jobs, dude, I'm like the Marine Corps, the military is a commitment, right? You have to be back at a certain time. You sign a contract that says you can't go anywhere for like 4 years. Like you can't quit. You can't. You're in the military. Like it's a big ass commitment. So I was just really excited to start this career. And with that said, my very first stop, right? My very first like a duty assignment, I went to they call it SOI, School of Infantry, and so I went to boot camp, in California, in San Diego, and then School of Infantry I went to on Camp Pendleton, California, and Camp Pendleton is huge. It's massive. I was like, what the hell? This place is crazy. And I get there, right? I check back in, and you don't know a fucking thing. Like I really don't know anything, right? You know what they taught you from boot camp, but now you're checking into a school setting. So everyone after they graduate boot camp, they either go to, well, at least when I joined the military back in 2003, it was MCT, Marine Combat Training, or it was School of Infantry. If you were a non-infantry background, if you were a non-03, you went to MCT where you learn basically the basics of infantrymen, skill sets, and you shoot, move, shoot, you communicate, and kind of like learn your core skill. And if you go to the School of Infantry, you are doing shoot, move, communicate, but you're learning your core skill as an O3. So a rifleman, a machine gunner, a mortarman, an assaultman, stuff like that. So I enlisted as an O311 because at the time there was no way to become a scout sniper. You had to go to the infantry first. And I was told that, signing up as a rifleman would be the easier job. And that really did hold to be true because the other like skill sets like mortarman or machine gunner or assaultman, these guys that shoot the rockets, like those dudes, like there's a lot of training that goes into that stuff, right? There's a lot of skill set, and those are usually smaller sections, right? Just seeing in my career, it was kind of hard for those guys to kind of leave. Like, hey, I want to try out to be a scout sniper. It was doable. It just wasn't as realistic back in the day, right? Like it was to be an infantryman because there's plenty of riflemen everywhere, right? So that was pretty simple. So I check into the School of Infantry and I'm blown away. Like I'm there with almost like everyone I graduated boot camp with, plus a couple new faces. And then you're there with like these other Marines, right? These senior Marines that are your instructors, and it was kind of like the same effect as boot camp, but there was more freedoms, right? You could talk, you could ask questions, like you could dip, you can do all sorts of stupid stuff, right? You could basically be like, it's like a little pond. It's like a fish that was like purchased from like like a pet store, and then you like release it into like a pond, right? It's just like what the hell? It's like a whole new world, and that's really what the School of Infantry was about for me. And it was kind of fun, it was a new experience. You got to shoot a lot of guns, throw grenades, do claymores. You got to do all these cool GI Joe things, and it was hard too. It was like, it was different type of hard. Your packs were heavier. And in boot camp, man, boot camp there was like heavy packs, but like it was really, man, maybe I don't know. I'm gonna guess like 40 pounds or something like that. Like it was heavy at the time when you're like 18 years old, and this is the first time you're carrying that much weight on your back. But then when you get to School of Infantry, I swear, like the weight just like tripled. You're walking up. There's huge mountains in Camp Pendleton. So like you're up and down those things all over. One of the things that I hated the most and that really got under my skin because I'm like, oh my God, this sucks so bad, was half the training events that we went to in the School of Infantry, we marched there. So, you're like, hey, riflemen, we're meeting in 5 minutes down in the quarter deck downstairs. So everyone's forms up. You got your full camis on, your packs, you got your pack, you got your rifle, you got everything. Like shit's heavy, it's hot, you're sweating, and you really don't know what's going on. And then they're like, follow me. And then like some dude that's not wearing anything is like walking really fast, and you're trying to keep up, and you're just a number still. And you're like marching, like, how far do I gotta go? And they're like, don't fall out. If you fall out, you're done. You're like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And, just all these things, these mind things, right? Because when you really break down this whole equation, it's just things designed to get you out of your comfort zone. Because, being in combat is not easy. Being in state of distress is not easy. Being uncomfortable is not easy. So all these things, they make it to where you can just, when you get to these like shitty situations, you're like, you adapt and overcome. It's like not that big of a deal. But nonetheless, it was super fun. I really enjoyed myself. It was the first time that I got to shoot machine guns. I remember I was actually made a squad leader in the School of Infantry, and I like fired myself. It didn't last that long, but I fired myself as a squad leader. I was a fire team leader. I fired myself because I wanted to carry a SAW, a squad automatic weapon. The M249, the machine gun, the belt-fed machine gun, and like, I was like infatuated by this thing. Like, oh my God, this thing is so cool because I've never seen one in person. Just like when you see some of these rifles, you're like, whoa, what is that thing? What, night vision? What is that? Because you don't experience any of that in boot camp. And so it was just so cool, when like talking about in episode 1, like, visualizing where I wanted to be at, visualizing all these things, and then being able to like actually like touch these items and like see these items. Like, it's just really awesome to, be able to like immerse yourself in those environments, and that's exactly what I got to do. So I was like super pumped, man. There was no turning back because this was it, and I knew exactly what I was doing was the right call. So like, still no regrets at this point in time in my life. Super pumped to be there. But yeah, School of Infantry was kind of easy. It's nothing crazy. people pass through this thing all the time. Like, you're already a Marine, there's no free passes, but like, you just show up and do what you're told. And like, no one really fails these things. Like, I don't see how you can fail because they teach the lowest common denominator, which was great because at that point, you can literally ask all the questions you want to. And one thing I learned throughout my Marine Corps career, and just like life in general, the basics is what pays the bills. The basics gets everything done. You can be as high speed as you want to. You can do all these like fancy wazoo things, but it's the basic foundations are what accomplishes things, right? Everything is built off the basic principles. So it was really great that they drove those points home. Hell, even like basic radio communication, it was like super awesome. Like, oh my God, I'm talking on a field phone for the first time. It was like just so cool to like live these moments out. Well, there was this one moment where, so recon guys, there were some guys that signed up for recon at the time, and they had like the first class swim qualifications. They had the GT score, which I think at the time it's probably still the same thing. You needed like a 105. I did not have a 105 GT score when I first joined the military. I was actually a 102. It was pretty low, but I had the ASVAB that I needed to become a rifleman and later to be a scout sniper. So it was all simple. So one day the recon recruiters showed up to like we were PTing or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, anybody want to sign up for recon?" I'm like, "Holy shit, this is dope! I could sign up for recon now, try out the recon screening, and if I make it, I just go straight to recon." I'm like, "This is kind of cool." So I go sign up my name, and they're like, "Hey, what's your swim call?" I'm like, I think it was like a third class or a fourth class. It wasn't really that great. In boot camp, I wasn't a strong swimmer, and in boot camp they were kind of just like push you through the they kind of just push you through the whole like experience. So I got like a third or fourth class. I was like, holy shit, thank God I survived. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty traumatized. Those, the pool was nuts, right? You're just like a herd of kittens, and they're like, hey, I'm not gonna teach you anything. Put all this gear on and jump in the water and don't die. You're like, oh fuck. So, anyways, long story short, these recon guys told me like go pound sand. I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm like, damn, that sucks. But let me tell you something. That's not why I joined the Marine Corps, right? That's not why I joined. I was distracted by a shiny opportunity, a shiny object. And if I was able to gone to recon at that time, that early stage in my life, dude, I would have experienced not nearly what I have experienced, if I stuck to my path like I currently did, right? You know, it's easy to get distracted in life, and it's easy to want to jump from like one thing to the next thing, but like, follow through with that one thing that made you start the whole process, right? Because you never know what that path is going to lead you on, right? And that was one of the greatest lessons I learned. And it was when they told me to fuck no, you can't come here. And I was like, man, this is awesome. At the time I didn't see it that way, but as I continued to grow through my career and all that type of stuff, I saw how it was like the best thing that, could have worked out for me. But anyways, so I was kind of like, whatever. I went back to like my daily life as a, School of Infantry Marine. I thought I was the bee's knees, right? Yeah, everyone thinks you're the bee's knees back then, but you really don't know anything. You literally know nothing. And everyone's motivated, but you still know nothing. Everyone pushes themselves, but you still know nothing. You literally know nothing. You're just a student, right? And you have this like internal like built up anticipation of like what the fleet, right? They call it the fleet, right? What's the fleet really like when you check into your actual unit? And so one of the school the SOI instructors, he pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey Cody, I remember you talking about you wanted to," well, he didn't call me Cody. He's like, "Hey, I was a Lance Corporal." He's like, "Hey, Lance Corporal Alfred." He's like, "Hey, I remember you talking about wanting to be a sniper. This battalion you're checking into, 2nd Battalion 1st Marines, are hosting a sniper indoc in like 3 weeks. It's like 2 weeks after you check in. You should sign up for it." I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for that information, man. This guy was super rad," right? And so, as we're nearing the end of the School of Infantry, we're getting ready to graduate. We knew that we were going to be checking into this new unit, and we saw these dudes like when we be like doing like ruck marches and stuff like that. We see these like old Marines, right? They look like super old, crusty Marines. They're wearing like tricolor camouflage, and we're like, oh my God, we're gonna get so hazed because we're wearing like new camis. And so we were in the Desert Digital, right? My whole class, it was crazy. And so, and there was a lot of pride back then with people who were wearing the tricolor camis because it's like, I'm the old school. Anyways. So we are finally graduating. We're getting on the buses, and my unit is actually just like down the road, probably like a couple miles, like actually like a mile and a half, I believe, 2 miles max. And they were telling us like, hey, all you guys checking in a 2-1, you're going to be doing the sandbag carry. We're like, what? Or the sea bag drag. And we're like, what is this? They're telling us we're going to have to march down there in our alphas, our green suit, uniforms with all of our stuff. I'm dreading it. I'm like, what? I'm not going to make it. Like, how am I going to do that? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like all these dumb things. And obviously that was a joke. They were just messing with us, right? And so we get into the school buses, we drive down there, we check in, and I see he would become a teammate of mine later on down the road in MARSOC. First Force Reconnaissance, and then MARSOC. But at the time he was a senior guy, and I remember he was in charge of an infantry platoon, and he's like, everyone get off the bus if you're coming to Fox Company. And I'm like, oh my God, they're yelling at everybody. It was crazy, right? It was just kind of like pandemonium. It wasn't too crazy, right? Like it was really just like built up anticipation inside everyone's head. But it was really exciting, and it was super chill. I moved into a 2-man barracks room. I'm really excited. I had this like super cool motor T guy. He was an older dude, and he was kind of telling me like, schedules, chow hall, whatever, right? I'm just like, okay, cool. It was a very opening, warming experience. So it wasn't that bad. But one things that I did right off the bat was blend into my environment because I was seeing that all these young guys, right? All these guys that I went to school with are like getting like snatched up and like, like just kind of like, you know, I don't know, messed with. I'm like, dude, screw this. I'm not gonna go do like random ass push-ups. So I ended up trading a pair of my desert digital my digital camis for a pair of the woodland camis, and I put my own name tapes on there. And I had a pair of black boots, and I just kind of blended in. I was a Lance Corporal, so like people really didn't blink twice at me because they thought I was already a senior guy, even though I'm like all of like 3 days as a Marine. And I just kind of like navigated myself around and blended in, and it worked out great. Actually, it worked out really great. And so, long story short, I'm checking into my platoon. I was actually not part of the snipers. I was part of this thing called the trailer platoon, and essentially what they told us is that we're gonna be wearing like helmets, like cool guy helmets, and like flight suits, and like support a force reconnaissance platoon. I'm like, whoa, this is so exciting, but still not what I wanted to do. And so I had friends that were getting ready to go to the sniper indoc because one of the sniper guys came down like, hey, we're running this sniper indoc. You know, it's happening in like 2 weeks. Does anybody want to sign up for it that's not already coming to the platoon? And we're like, yeah. They're like, you guys are gonna learn. It ain't gonna be easy. It's gonna be hard. And we're kind of just like, whatever. I mean, isn't that really what all this is about? Is like, we know that there's not gonna be any handouts. I mean, if anything is a glimpse of boot camp. Boot camp is not easy, but it's doable because you really don't know how much you can push yourself until you're actually put in those situations. So it kind of really all made sense, and it was nothing too crazy to like even like. It was like nothing too crazy, like even fret about. So I wasn't even worried about it. And so, long story short, even shorter, it's like day one of the indoc. And I'm really nervous because like, I watch all this shit on TV and I'm like, dude, what? I don't even know what to experience or what to expect. Like, it's crazy. And you show up there and they just tell you straight up like, hey, this place isn't for the weak. This place isn't for quitters. This place isn't for people who don't, who are selfish, all these different, like, all these, like, man laws and rules. And we're like, holy shit, this is super badass. And these guys, there's been guys in the platoon that were, there's only a few scout snipers. And then there was a bunch of senior guys who were pigs, called pigs, professionally instructed gunmen. These are guys who, like myself, once you pass the indoc, you become a pig and you are not a school trained scout sniper yet, right? So you do all the other shit, you're just not school trained. And so we had a few of the senior guys that were going to sniper school at the time. And so it was kind of like a small platoon because these guys were gone to school. And that just really meant there was more time for like us to get quote unquote training. So, this sniper indoc, dude, it was crazy, right? So like it was nothing but a bunch of land navigation, a lot of PT, a shit ton of ruck running. With like heavy packs, like 55-pound packs, not including your water, like running up and down these stupid mountains and moving long distances and having crazy, crazy, crazy time hacks, right? Like that's all it seemed like. It was just like time hack here. You have this long to be here. You have this long to be here. And, at the time, they taught you basic land navigation in the School of Infantry, but it was kind of basic. Dude, there was no doubt that you knew land navigation. You learned it very quickly once you got to the sniper platoon because that's all you did. Because how can you get places? GPSs weren't like a prominent thing for us back then. Like not everyone had one. And so, those wrist GPSs that you see nowadays of these GPS watches, those things didn't exist, at least not for like, modern people, right? The average bear people. And so everything was a map and compass and a protractor. And they did a great job teaching you like how to read all this shit because what they're about to do is put you through the test and see if you've actually paid attention to literally any of this. And, what are you going to do about it? So I remember, doing this land nav and I was just like, holy shit, how do they expect us to get the points? But, one of the greatest thing about being a scout sniper, just a Marine in general, or just a human in general, is like you find a way to adapt and overcome, right? Like land nav was pretty fucking easy, but then for me, it was pretty easy. But you guys also look at your environment that you're in. There's a lot of things called terrain association, and like Camp Pendleton, there's big mountains and big ridge lines, and you really learn how to read the terrain and read the maps and use the environment to your advantage by just sticking to a map and like really beating yourself up because you're not looking up to see where you're actually at, right? A map is great, but that map is useless if you're not looking around and actually seeing where you're going. And so we found ourselves doing numerous land nav events, and it was just nonstop. So I got really good at it. Well, I remember part of the end dock, and we're staying up late hours. We're digging fighting holes. We're doing all sorts of weird shit, right? Really just stuff to like break us down, keep us up super late, sleep deprived, food deprived, and it wasn't honestly. I was in the end dock with like a bunch of like hard dudes I went to boot camp with. Like these dudes were like top notch, right? And we were just so excited to be there. And honestly, that era of dudes, man, it was invincible. Like everyone was committed. There wasn't no weak sauce. There was no reset button. It was like dudes are like, yo, man, I want to do this. I want to be the best of the best. And here I am. Hear me roar. And so that was really it, right? So it was just great energy all around. And so I remember this one particular land nav event they gave us. So like, hey, you guys have, I think it was like 6 hours to complete this like land navigation course. And we got to do it in partners because it was like literally all over Camp Pendleton, it seemed like. And the rules are simple. Keep your pack on you the entire time. Keep your camping paint on. Make your time hacks, blah, blah, blah. Come back with all your points type of stuff. And my buddy Mike and I, we're doing like, he was my partner, and I'm like, hey dude, I know this point is over here, and he's like, we're going back and forth, like which is the best route to get there. I'm like, yo dude, you gotta listen to me. He's like, no man, this is the way. I'm like, all right. And so I'll follow his way, and we end up getting lost. And I'm like, dude, we're running out of time, we're gonna be late. And he's like, no, we're gonna make it just fine. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, bro, there's no way we're making it back. There's like literally no way. So we end up snatching our point, and we're, at this point in time, like we are very far away from our base, right? Our camp that we need to be back to for this time hack. I think we had like a 4 o'clock time hack or something like that to be back by. Anyways, and I'm like, fuck, bro. We're gonna be late. We're gonna be like 10 minutes late. That's if we catch a ride, right? And so I'm like, all right, check this out. All right, you need to put on camping paint. We're gonna put camping paint on ourselves. He's like, why? I'm like, dude, we've already fucked up. If we're gonna come back late, we're gonna come back square the fuck away, right? So we like retuck our blouses in. We make sure our shit is good to go, right? We're not gonna come back like a slappy bag of like excuses, right? Like, hey, we're gonna come back, face the fucking executioner with like our shoulders down and back, standing up straight and like being prideful, right? And so we're like, we're gonna look the part and make sure like we are just scored away completely head to toe. And so we were able to catch a ride in the back of someone's truck. I'm like, hey, can you take us to Horno? That's the camp that we worked at. It was literally like, in a truck, it was like 5 minutes away. So we hop in the back. Our times are expired. And this guy drops us off. We get into the parking lot, and we're like running to our barracks. We run up the stairs, and dude, we get there. And the whole platoon, and this is a small platoon. This is like 12 dudes. The whole platoon is like, where have y'all been? And we're like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. This is when I get kicked out of this shit. And I was so pissed off because my buddy made a wrong choice. And even though I combated him, I'm like, you know what? All right, let's execute. And it just fucking failed. It fucking failed. And it devastated me. I'm like, dude, if I get kicked out for this shit, man, I'm gonna be fucking pissed. And he felt so bad, and he was pissed too. And it was just a whole bad concept. The thing is, these dudes, our fellow platoonmen that were hosting the NDOC, they're like, where you guys been? And they just drilled us. They just lit into us about like, discipline and time hacks. And they're like, if you're told to be somewhere, you be there or you miss your ride. We execute with precision and time hacks. As a scout sniper, dude, personal radios didn't exist back then also, right? Like not every dude had a radio, right? There was like one radio for like 4 people sometimes. And, a lot of guys, we executed off the time hack. So they said, hey, 4 o'clock, something's happening, 4 o'clock, you shoot, there's these things, right? There's these principles, right? There's these guidelines. There's these no falter lines. And the thing is, when I started on that land navigation course that day, I looked at it as a land navigation course. And even though it was a time hack, and I wanted to make it. Why wouldn't I want to make it? I was told to make it by this time or else. Now it's or else, and I was so fucking scared, man. I'm like, dude, all my dreams, everything that I dreamt of, everything is gonna get fucking thrown away now because I was late. Dude, I was heartbroken. And, we stood there, we took our ass chewing, we stood at the position of attention and we just got laid into, like, where you guys at? Blah, 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 blah. And we owned up to it. We're like, hey, we made a bad decision. And, luckily for us, and I know this doesn't sound like a super sexy, like, oh, that indoc sounds pretty simple, just land nav, dude, it's not just the physical things, and that's what I want you all to understand. It's not the physical shit that separates you. It's the mental shit that separates you. Dude, we came back, we fucking owned up, we fucking were squared away, we had all of our points, but we missed the biggest lesson, the discipline aspect. And until they told us, like, really, like, the whole importance of, like, these time hacks, and, like, dude, you're gonna miss your ride if you're told the choppers are picking you up at 16:30 and you show up at 16:40. You just missed your ride. And I'm like, fuck. I've never even been in that situation before. I never even had this much freedom in the military to be let loose to go execute a task and come back. Like, this is all new to me. And I know it sounds super simple, but as an 18-year-old young man that really, I don't know anything about anything. All I know is that I want to do things. That's really it. I realized, dude, this great message and lesson that I learned here was like this discipline, this time hack shit. I was like, fuck, I was blown away. And luckily, our platoon commander saw that, like, my buddy and I, we were fucking squared away. Like, we were good ass Marines. Like, even though we were super young, super junior, but like everyone that showed up for the indoc was just on point, right? And by the way, made the best scout sniper platoon ever. And so we got a second chance. And they said, hey, if you guys screw this up again, you're done. And I'm like, roger that. And so that grace, right, that gift of, like, yo, they ripped into us. They broke us down. They said, like, yo, what were you thinking? Why weren't you here when I told you to be here? They put it in perspective to where I actually understood. And now I had buy-in. Now there's no excuse. There's no excuse for either miscommunication when we're on patrolling, tit for tat. Like, no, this is the way. No, this is the way. No. There's only one way, and it's the right way. And the right way begins with communication. We could have busted out our maps and, like, look at these. Like, but we didn't do that. We didn't break it down Barney style. We didn't break it down to the lowest common denominator. We just said, hey, I have this, and we went with it. Well, we were sacrificing the whole team mentality when we did that. We were completely neglecting the overall mission. The overall mission was to be back at a certain time, and we failed that. And the lessons that I learned from that, I still carry on to this day, right? I mean, I'm still not perfect to this day, as I'm about to be 36, and there's time hacks that I mess up. There's things that I completely, like, jack up in life. But I always go back to that experience when I was at this indoc, because I'm like, dude, this is literally the foundational for everything. Everything that I learned in the military, everything I still learn today as a civilian, and as just a human being of society. I learned that it's not what you're tasked with that's the lesson. It's what you take away from the task that's the lesson, right? So if you're tasked to just do land nav, that's not the challenge. That's not the challenge. Anyone can do land navigation. But can you do land navigation and make the time hack? Can you do land navigation, make the time hack, and fucking be the best you can be? Can you look the part? Are you the part? Are you going to be the part, right? Are you going to put out? Are you going to throw your fucking friend under the bus? Are you going to fucking own up to your excuses, own up to your mistakes, own up to your wrongdoings, and fucking face it? And that's exactly what we did. We didn't narc on each other. We said we fucked up. Unacceptable. Fuck excuses. We didn't make any of those things. Because we knew if we were going to get kicked out of this fucking platoon, because we were fucking truthful. Yeah, we fucked up and we owned up to it. And that was the way we took it. And my friend Mike and I, we didn't get kicked out at all. And it worked out great because I would have been heartbroken, you know? And that NDOC itself, it really set the trajectory for who I would become as a United States Marine in my career. It was the single foundation of everything that I knew. I learned literally everything from the infantry, everything. Did I advance that throughout my career? Oh, absolutely. Did I build upon it throughout my career? Absolutely. But the lessons that I learned as a scout sniper, just even the NDOC, right? I haven't even gone to sniper school yet. Haven't even gone. Just the lessons that I learned, the men I got to serve with, and the opportunities to build literally brilliance in the basics, right? Basics on everything. There was no advanced teaching. It was all basics. Like, hey, you got nothing and I need you to create everything. Here's the basics on how we do it. Just learning those principles, right? Those set the stage for everything in my life. And I still hold true to those today. There's brilliance in the basics. As I wrap up this podcast, this episode, I'm sure you're ready for like some cool guy stories, but listen, the coolest stories I have to share are the ones where I fucking learned lessons. It's the ones where I fucked up. It's the ones where I suffered. Those are the coolest stories that I have because that's where I grew. I didn't fucking grow to become like all I could be, right? The best version of myself as United States Marine and pursuing my goals and not taking no for an answer. I didn't become that version by doing easy shit or by never failing or by never having a hardships or struggle. I never achieved those things by never being fearful or scared of something. I achieved those things because I experienced all that shit and I didn't let it stop me. Same with my friends. Same with you. You're no different than I. If you believe in that methodology, if you allow these speed bumps in life to throw you off course and completely change your character, fuck. What do you expect is going to happen to you? When you mess up in life, own up to it. Move past it. Learn from it. Grow from it. Because if you just pass blame, if you just give up, shrug your shoulders, act like it's not a big deal, then why would the universe ever give you an opportunity to fucking be a big deal? Why would things ever align for you? Why do you deserve anything if you're going to look at life in such a simplistic mindset? If you're wanting to join the United States Marine Corps, if you're wanting to pursue even a similar path as I did, or just a path of your own, which is even awesomer, it's going to take everything you got. It's going to take you facing your fears. It's going to take you facing that unknown. It's going to take you not giving up on yourself. It's going to take you, dude, I could have fucking walked back when I was late. I could have fucking walked back. Like, man, I'm already fucking late. Might as well just walk back. Fuck no, motherfucker. I'm going to low crawl back if I have to. Why would I give up? Even though I was late, why would I give up? That's not who I am. Because the whole time we were late, we were literally running. We were running the entire land nav course. We weren't walking. We were late because we got lost. We took a wrong path, right? There was a poor map study done, and we ended up in the wrong ambush site. And so, but we weren't walking, we weren't leisurely doing anything. We were moving our butts everywhere. And that's what it's going to take from you. It's going to take you moving your butt everywhere. If you want to go anywhere in this life, you're going to have to move your butt. And guess what? If you're going to screw up many a times in life. But when you do that, you can either move your butt or you can drag your ass. There's a difference. We all fail something in life. We all have hardships in life. We all fucking show up late to our target site once in life. It happens to everybody. The question is, are you going to let it continuously happen to you? Or are you going to learn your lesson and move on? Because you just don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know the true valuable lesson that this whole NDOC really shared with me. And maybe the whole NDOC wasn't based upon that. The NDOC is really based on like who's not going to quit, who's tough, and who can do these basic things, right? But the lessons that I decided to take from them were much more valuable. It was much deeper because that's what it's going to require me to do and execute when I'm alone and afraid, when I'm by myself, when I'm just a two-man team, right? It's not leisure that grows us. It's adversity. It's the discipline of being uncomfortable and yet still performing. It's the, oh my God, things aren't going my way. Am I going to quit, or am I going to buckle down even harder? Am I going to make it fucking work some way, some form? And that's exactly what my buddy Mike and I did. So, it's not rocket science, guys. Like, becoming whoever you want to be in life, whether in the military or as a civilian, it doesn't matter. It's going to take everything you've got, and it's going to take you looking past the surface value of the situation to find the root, the true message, and the feeling that you feel inside afterwards. If you're not adapting and growing inside this way, you're missing out on opportunities, because every time something goes bad in your life, it doesn't have to be a woe is me victim mindset where I just quit. It could be something you build upon, like, holy shit, I experienced that. I never want to experience that again. The fact of almost potentially getting kicked out of something that I haven't got to experience yet, but yet I'm there at the threshold, it fucking traumatized me. I'm like, fuck no, I'm never doing this feeling again. I'm never doing that again. But now I know, and now I learned a valuable fucking lesson, and so did everyone else around us. That's how we grow, man. That's how we become the best versions of ourselves. Because it's going to take literally everything you got to break down your old self, to build up the new self, to break down the old self, to build up the new self, to break down the old self, to build up the new self, to become the best version of yourself in anything and everything you do. Everyone, thank you so much. This next episode, we're going to cover sniper school. Once again, I might have the stories that you're looking for, but I try to share, stuff that you can't just see from Googling, right? You can Google sniper in doc, sniper school, all that type of stuff, but I want to share with you the mindset and the thought process behind a lot of this shit, because you can apply it to literally all these aspects in your life, and that, my friends, it's what's going to separate you from the pack. And if you're part of this organization, if you're part of Operators Association, you already know that you're not like your other friends. You already separated yourself from the pack because you're committed to becoming the best version of yourself. You're committed to being surrounded by dudes and gals who want to be the best versions of themselves and accomplish high performance shit in the military and in life. And that's the type of people I want in my circle. So good for you. Glad to have you guys. I'm super pumped. My name is Cody, and thank you so much for your time.